Donald Trump recently criticized China for fudging coronavirus numbers. But what he doesn't really mention is how much states that happen to be friendly toward him lie to their own residents about the coronavirus numbers in order to persuade people that it's okay to open prematurely and to get businesses up and running again. So let's start off with what's happening in Florida specifically. So there's a woman named Rebecca Jones. She's a scientist who created Florida's COVID-19 data portal. But she was removed from her position because she refused to manipulate the numbers of deaths due to coronavirus. So in an email to USA Today, Rebecca Jones said that she single-handedly created this detailed application to find ways for Floridians and researchers to see how the state is doing with coronavirus. She says, quote, "I worked on it alone 16 hours a day for 2 months, most of which I was never paid for. And now that this has happened, I'll probably never get paid for. They are making a lot of changes. I would advise being diligent in your respective uses of this data." So she's basically saying, hey, you know what? They got rid of me, and now it's likely that they're going to manipulate the numbers. She also confirmed to CBS in Palm Beach that she was fired because she was ordered to censor some of that data, and she refused to. She says, Jones said that her removal was not voluntary and that she was removed from her position because she was ordered to censor some data, but refused to, quote, manually change data to drum up support for the plan to reopen. So this is what we're seeing.
Yeah. So a couple of implications here. Number one, Florida reopened and bragged about it. And now they're obviously, indisputably hiding the numbers. So, how bad is it in Florida? So this is what Republicans do. They look up to authoritarian governments like China and North Korea. That's part of why Donald Trump fell in love with Kim Jong-un. Those are his words. And he said, Kim Jong-un, he's amazing. In his country, when he says stand up, everybody has to stand up. I wish it were like that in this country. So it's not surprising that Donald Trump was also bragging about China early on in the coronavirus debacle and covering up for their lies. And so now his Republican friends are doing it to make sure that they don't get embarrassed. So how do you know it's confirmed? Well, the website was public. So we were seeing all the data and the details of the data, and people all the way up to Dr. Birx, part of Trump's task force, said how great and wonderful it was. And it was like a shining example of great transparency. Well, that was under a Republican governor, but credit where credit is due. We have an ideology. We're progressives, but we're not partisan. That's why we call out the Democratic Party all the time. And if Republicans from time to time do something good, we're super happy to take it. You want to oppose war powers? Fantastic. We're happy to have you on that side. So when Florida was being transparent about the numbers, give them credit. Wonderful. Now they're obviously hiding the real numbers. So what are the real numbers? No one knows. And God help you in Florida, because your governor is a liar, and his whole government is now covering up the real data on how bad it is.
Yeah, exactly. And you see this in other states, red states as well. For instance, in the lead up to reopening Georgia, Brian Kemp used metrics that were not accurate. So first of all, you can't have accurate metrics if you don't have widespread testing available. And it wasn't really, it wasn't data that was dependent on results from widespread testing. One other thing that's been clear is that the numbers in Georgia are being manipulated because the data that they're releasing has all sorts of ridiculous errors in it, including in one data set, they had a week with 2 Sundays in it. Now, later, Brian Kemp apologized for it, and they said that they would fix the errors. But Kemp is 100% motivated to have the state open, and it doesn't matter how many people contract the virus or how many people die from the virus. They will do what's necessary to fudge the numbers, manipulate the numbers, or suppress the numbers in order to justify reopening prematurely.
Yeah, one of the absurdities about the Georgia case was they put the data from the days backwards. So it seemed like it was the amount of cases were decreasing. That's only because they flipped the days. They made the later days earlier. And so
Exactly.
Look, it looked like, having looked through all their mistakes, that some of them could have been honest mistakes, but the ones where you flip the days so it looks like the numbers are decreasing, and a couple other egregious examples, makes it fairly clear that this was done on purpose. And so now 2 states led by Republican governors who bragged about reopening early, both actively manipulating and hiding the number of cases and number of deaths in their states. So if you live in one of those states, God help you. You elect a Republican governor, period, God help you. Because 9 out of 10 times they will lie to you, as exactly as they're doing here. And all they care about, look, I get it, they're politicians, all of them, all they care about is their own reputation more than anything else. And God knows that that applies to Democratic leadership too. But Republicans are clearly more brazen in their willingness to manipulate, to deceive, and to cover up the truth, as is clearly happening in Florida and Georgia.